Should you dump a buyer for another? Let's talk about it. Let's go straight into the question. The question is a little bit elaborate. Just follow my lead. There's a lot you're going to learn out of this question. Hey, this is Ola coming to you live from my Empire Pro Studios. On this episode, we're talking about, should you dump a buyer for another? Let's talk about it. Let's go straight into the question. The question is a little bit elaborate. Just follow my lead. There's a lot you're going to learn out of this question with regards to wholesale real estate. Wholesale real estate, first of all, is the art and the science of finding deeply discounted properties using mass media marketing, okay? Locking them under contract, and then flipping the right to execute the contract, the right to actually buy the house, sell that to somebody else for a fee. That's how you make money. It's a very lucrative business. You can make anywhere from $1,000 to $82,000, which is my highest on record. I'm trying to beat that, okay? But that's the game right there. So there's a question that came in, says, I have a buyer. So remember, you have to flip the contract to an actual buyer on the other end, right? The person says, I have a buyer that's using a bank loan to purchase a property. I try to avoid that. It's doable, but I try to avoid it, okay? Just so you know, I try to avoid using a conventional bank loan called mortgage, okay? But you can use hard money lenders. There are opportunities to use hard money lenders. As a matter of fact, I suggest to focus more on hard money lenders because you get to make a lot more money than cash buyers. Cash buyers who are using their own cash, they have to pay for that cash still. So they're always looking for a way to do 20 cents, 40 cents on the dollar. And you will hear things like, that's not a deal. But really, it's just that it's too expensive for them. When they're using their own cash, they have to make sure that that cash comes back. So they're trying to really buy as deep discount as possible. But when you're dealing with a hard money lender, they are using a system, and the hard money lender gives a little bit more money, and they're not looking to make a killer because they're now using their own cash, okay? The cash on cash return for them is still bigger than somebody using their own cash. All right, but either way, as long as there's an interested buyer, then you have a deal, okay? So the person says using a bank loan to purchase a property. Everything is at the title company and he's waiting on the bank. Waiting on the bank is negative. I don't like the sound of that personally. Waiting on the bank sounds too not knowing what they're doing. At least you should have a date. You should have an average date. Unless the deal is not really a deal. And a lot of time when something is not a deal, they're trying to squeeze it in. As a loan officer somewhere trying to squeeze the juice out of something that doesn't have juice because they don't know what they're doing for the most part too. And then they call it, we're waiting on the deal. Just want to be careful for that. Everything that's at the title company and he's waiting on the bank. The only thing at the title company is essentially they're doing the title research, which title company will do that en masse. So they don't care, they'll do that. And hopefully you'll close, right? And they have a contract, a sales contract. So that doesn't really mean anything if something's at the title company, because title company can get things done in a few days, you know. The key point here is that they're waiting on a loan. It's a bad idea to be waiting on a loan. It should be moving fast, or at the very minimum, we should have, hey, 48 hours average. After 48 hours, you check on people and say, hey, how's it going? You have the commitment? Do you have a loan approval? It's a few things here. Pre-approval, you want a commitment, an appraiser, right? And then you want to make sure there's a closing date set. That's the way it works. When the deal, it's a deal. If it's not a deal, it can still close, but when people are trying to squeeze something out of nothing, it usually ends up in a fallout, in a deal that will fall out, basically fall through, right? Not happen. The bank can't close till the 20th, so just keep that in your mind. A real cash buyer reached out. The bank can't close till the 20th. So if they basically, I'm going to assume that that's a closing date that's already been scheduled, 20th, right? But we're getting somewhere, right? A real cash buyer reached out to me today stating that he is interested in the property. So a real cash buyer is somebody who says they're a cash buyer. There's a lot of them in the game. Some of them are wholesalers just like you. So make sure that you actually have a bank statement or some kind of hard money pre-approval before you claim somebody is a real buyer. And a hard money approver is just a hard money pre-approval. Sometimes that's not even real. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But if they have cash, then they should be able to show you a bank statement from Chase, from Wells Fargo that shows they have money, right? and it's very important that they show that to you, especially that you have a buyer in the pipeline already, right? So before you even engage in too much conversation or speculations, right? So this buyer says, this buyer previously viewed the property but decided not to purchase because the market was slow. I don't know what that means. What does it mean that the market was slow? How long have we been at this, right? To determine if a market is slow, you need a spectrum of time, at least 3 months to 6 months, to say, hey, a market was slow. So how all of a sudden the market can change to I want to buy, that's possible. But usually that's only possible with people that don't know what they're doing, or they're not too sure, or they may have other deals on their table. But it's basically a fake excuse is my point, okay? Usually a buyer knows what they want and they want it now, right? Usually if they are savvy. Now, if they don't know what they're doing, they can still be a buyer. Don't get it twisted, but just keep that at the back of your mind as you're dealing with these people. Do your due diligence, have real solid reasons to take certain actions. So far, I will not dump my buyer for this person. That's the point I'm trying to make, okay? So this buyer previously, okay, so now he wants it and can close within a week. There are tons of wholesalers that tell that narrative that they can close within a week. So again, what does that mean? Have they shown you cash in the bank? Have they shown you some kind of statement showing that they can do that? All right, so if they haven't done that, it's speculation. All right, so there's really nothing to be excited about. Just because they say it doesn't mean it's real. Sometimes text messages, right? So now he wants it close within a week or less, since the title is already at a title company. Now, if they truly have cash, that means they can close within a week, okay? All right, so now the question, would you stay with the loan buyer who is scheduled to close in 17 days? So in 17 days on the 20th, that means today is the 3rd, right? So the loan buyer, the person using a mortgage loan, hopefully that's not what it is, right? They're scheduled to close. If they're scheduled to close in 17 days, what I can tell you from experience is that's too far out. 17 days sounds like somebody that doesn't have a commitment in place. They don't have an appraiser in place. And they don't have a scheduled date, really. They're just saying, hey, it takes us an average of 45 days. It takes us an average of 30 days. Purely speculation. No one is looking at this file yet. The file is not even on an underwriter's table, because an underwriter will close a deal in 48 hours. That means everything is already pre-approved. That means the appraiser is good to go. That means the buyer is already pre-qualified as far as their personal credit and all this other stuff, right? Their personal financial profile has been screened, right? And it's now on an underwriter's table. An underwriter will see that it's time to make money for them. Keep in mind, they have invested interest in closing the deal because that's how they make money. So they're not going to leave a file on their table just for the sake of sitting around, right? We're talking about just homes. We're talking about less than $500,000 in transaction, right? So it's nothing. So basically, they want to give you the money and close the deal and make their money, their commissions. Not only do they have invested interest in closing the deals, the loan officer want to collect their money too. So they will be pressurizing them as well too, because that's how they make commissions. So a deal ready to go and it's 17 days scheduled out for a distressed type of property sale or a deal that you flipped doesn't really make sense, okay? So that's not too sure too. Basically, they're not sure, okay? Or the cash buyer, so 17 days, or should I go with the cash buyer who can close in 7 days or less? So if you weigh that on apples and oranges, of course, you should probably say 7 days, but then you have a contract with the 17 days. And you must honor that contract. So a couple of questions comes to mind, and I'm going to ask those questions. The real answer here is not necessarily the answer to what you want. The automatic answer would be go with the 7 days if there was no contract. If there was a contract, you have to honor that contract. Everything else being equal, you have to keep things ethical. You have to make sure you maintain ethical morals in this game, because it will come back and bite you if you don't do that. So the automatic answer based off of those simple facts will be, of course, go with the 17 days, because you have to do the honorable thing, which is maintain the contract, right? But there's more. There's more. I've been working on this deal for 3 months, and seller needs to sell as soon as possible, ASAP. that's irrelevant, okay? Which means if you put a house under contract for 15 days, that means you already expired that, right? So that's completely irrelevant. You can always go back to the table and renegotiate. You guys are going after the same goal. You want to close, they want to close. So that's still good to go. So it's irrelevant. The key thing here is on your contract, your original contract, you should have had a date that that they're due to give you a commitment. A commitment to close will come with a scheduled date of close, and it's usually 7 days or less. It doesn't matter if it's a loan, doesn't matter if it's a cash. It will be 7 days or less. That means they've checked all the paperwork and they give you a commitment to close. So 17 days out already defiles that. So if you don't have that in your contract, it's kind of screwed. But you can somehow talk to an attorney and default that contract or cancel the contract. Somebody gives you 17 days, what I would do, and somebody else is showing up to the table for 7 days, what I would do is I will request to cancel the contract with them, and I will tell them to sign off of it or give you a commitment to close in 7 days or less. If they so badly want the deal, they will move a little bit faster and give you some real answers. If they don't, you give them 48 hours to cancel or it's canceled. Very simple like that. If they have any kind of earnest money deposit in place, you can give them back to them, but don't make those moves unless you collect. First of all, have a check in front of you. Somebody, you don't have to accept it yet, but there's an offer. You can accept offer, have it on your table, a real offer with a check for $5,000, $3,000 or $5,000. You have that in front of you, and then you can now ask to cancel. If they don't cancel, you just give it back to them. Again, keep this strictly paperwork. Talk to your attorney in your local area, and this should be very, very simple. Just completely avoid speculation. That's really the answer right there, okay? Now, all of this stuff you don't have to worry about if you are operating your business the way I show you how to, which is basically you can skip 80% of the hustle. All this craziness with this legalities, you don't have to deal with this kind of crap. You can basically make 6 figures income with or without closing a deal, and then you can 10x your deal. If you want more information about that, go grab this book. SmartRealEstateWholesaling.com is where you want to go. It's called Smart Real Estate Wholesale. And if you go there right now, I'll give you this as a bonus. It's called Real Estate Money Secrets. That's my newest book. Hopefully you've been enlightened and educated. I will see you on the next one. Peace.